hey there, everybody. Welcome to Gather and Go, the podcast that helps you plan, promote, and lead better trips. I'm Brian Jewell. I am your host. I'm feeling kind of chilly on this icy day in early February, but excited to have you with us, no matter what the weather looks like outside your window. And you know, as always, our promise to you is that we're going to do absolutely everything we can to make this investment of your time worth your while. Today, I have a really invigorating conversation with Michelle Stark of Red Sage Communications. Michelle is a former TV journalist who turned the page to get into communications work, and she is absolutely loving the tourism industry. She's going to talk to us today about your sales pipeline. That's right. We've got a conversation that is going to help you close more sales. She's going to share tips for keeping your sales pipeline full. We're going to talk about communication strategies that will allow you to reach new and returning customers. And she's going to share some great ideas for succeeding specifically in 2026. This is a conversation you will definitely want to hear. Before we get there, though, let's start with some travel news you may have missed. Celebrity River Cruises is doubling its fleet. Celebrity, which is known for luxury ocean cruises, made a splash last year when it announced it would enter the river cruise market. The company announced it would launch 2 vessels on European rivers in 2027, with 3 more to follow in 2028. The initial plan was for the company to have 10 boats on the water by 2030. Based on the popularity of its inaugural offerings, however, the company has announced plans to double its initial order and now expects to have 20 river cruise ships operational by 2031. Celebrity president Laura Hodges-Bethke said the line's entire inventory for 2027 trips sold out within 6 minutes of going on sale, which helped prompt the decision to double the fleet size. The company recently opened bookings for 2028, with more ships, an expanded cruising season, and more than 25 additional destinations. Well, now before we move on, I want to take a minute and share a little bit of news from us. I hope you know about our on-site familiarization program. This is a great program where we partner with destinations around the country and sometimes around the world to host trips for travel planners like you to get to know those destinations firsthand. Now, you may have heard me mention that we have a trip to Louisiana coming up in March, and I want to let you know we have just a few spots remaining on that trip. It's going to be an excellent tour, March 19th through 23rd. We're going to be flying into the New Orleans area and then visiting places such as Thibodaux, Houma, Patterson, and a lot of other really charming communities along the way. If you attend, you're going to enjoy stops at a gator farm, an aviation museum. We're going to spend some time at a shrimp company, take a swamp tour, and of course, there's going to be some excellent food along the way. I'm going to be on that tour. I'm excited about this one. I would love to have you there with me. So if you are free March 19th through 23rd and want to join us for this familiarization tour, you need to go today to apply at grouptravelleader.com/LA-fam, as in Louisiana fam. grouptravelleader.com/LA-fam. Get your application in now. We only have a very few spots left. And if you don't do it soon, well, that spot might be gone by the time you try. So get those applications in this week. And I look forward to having you join us in Louisiana next month. Well, now it is just about time for us to get into our featured conversation with Michelle Stark. Before we do that, though, let me remind you that you can find a wrap-up of some of the most important things Michelle had to say in the show notes for this episode. Show notes are the text that show below the audio player wherever you are listening to this episode. And you can find show notes for the dozens and dozens and dozens of Gather and Go episodes we've done over the past 3 years at grouptravelleader.com/podcast or in your favorite podcast playing app. Now, at the end of the interview, I'll also do a quick wrap up of some of the most important things Michelle had to say. And I hope you will stick with me through the end of that wrap up, because after that, I want to take a minute and talk about what car dealerships can teach you about sales. That's going to be the topic of today's Hot Minute. You don't want to miss that. We will be right back with Michelle Stark. All right, everybody. My guest today is a former news anchor and technology reporter who now uses her communications expertise to help tourism clients boost their sales and marketing efforts. She's the vice president of sales and marketing at Red Sage and a frequent speaker for organizations such as the National Tour Association and Southeast Tourism Society. Michelle Stark, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brian. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. This is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm always thrilled to get to talk to a fellow journalist, even if that's part of your past and not part of your present. There's so much I want to get to here, but let's talk first about how you made that transition from journalism to tourism marketing, because that is not the typical path for people who come from your background.
No, it's really not, Brian. So we'll start there. I'm a Michigan girl. I grew up in the state of Michigan, graduated from Michigan State, go Spartans, woo! And then pursued a career in broadcast journalism. And I loved it. It was so much fun. But you reach a certain age and a certain season where waking up at 2 a.m., putting a whole face on just gets really old.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago now, I just started thinking I really wanted to explore something different. I had the good fortune to tag up locally through a shared connection with the founder of Red Sage Communications. At the time, it was a really small little shop doing strategy, design, website development. And honestly, the founder was looking to grow the company. She was like, I need a number two. I need someone who can do business development, marketing. And it was just seemed like a great fit with my background and having been a technology reporter as well. I had some exposure with content and modern social tools, how we advertise and push content through those. So I took the leap, and Red Sage has always had a strong foundation in economic development. When I joined, we were more of a generalist, but in the last couple of years, Brian, we really realized we were doing our best work in that recreation, tourism space. We were doing a lot of livability campaigns, workforce recruitment, and over time, just realized, hey, we have a really great knack for destination, attraction experience. So about 2.5 years ago, we repositioned the agency full time into this space and just embraced that change. So that was a big rebranding for us and re-pivoting into an ecosystem that we love.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a lot of experience helping organizations kind of craft what you call a sales pipeline, kind of figure out what that customer journey looks like from, first exposure, I'm assuming, until conversion, and even after conversion, delivery. Why don't you explain what you mean by that concept, what the sales pipeline is, and what maybe the building blocks of it are?
Sure. So the sales pipeline, put very simply, is just the pathway that prospective customers take to actually engage in a conversion. So when we think about building a pipeline, it's really about both in-person connection and, more commonly in our current world, this whole big mishmash web of digital touch points where someone might see and engage with your brand. And the idea of the pipeline itself is building something that is sustainable, again, a pathway through these various touch points that leads those people, those right fit audiences, to potentially book with you, right? Or engage with your destination and, bring that revenue in that everyone's eager for.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us some examples of what that looks like today. You mentioned there's some in-person elements. You mentioned there's some digital elements. Garden variety tour company, or maybe small destination. What is that pipeline going to look like for them?
So this is interesting. When we think about the pipeline, I'll kind of talk about it from two perspectives. So there's the new client acquisition pipeline, Brian, and there's also the existing client pipeline. So let's just separate those out for a minute. The first piece is the new client piece. So I want you to imagine, Brian, for a minute, that people are pigeons. So
Okay.
one thing, I know it sounds crazy, but stay with me. So one of the things we really try to encourage our partners at the agency to think about is people as pigeons, and that we want to lay a breadcrumb trail for them. We
Mm.
want to put these breadcrumbs out into the world, but do it in an intentional way where we lead the pigeons to you to be able to take that action and ultimately drive sales. It's not just let me throw all the breadcrumbs into the wind and try to, give the pigeons a great lunch. That's not really what this is about. It's about
Yeah.
that intentionality. But new clients, new customers, they do cost money. And so there's an intentionality there, as I mentioned a moment ago, that's really critical to making a pipeline work. Also, on the existing side, this is another one that's really amazing. People underutilize this opportunity, Brian. They're so focused on bringing new people, bringing new people, bringing new people. They don't think about how can I engage and re-engage and upsell super fans who are already in
Mm.
their ecosystem. I've talked to so many tour operators who are like, oh gosh, we're based out of Miami or we're based out of this metro area and we have such a great reputation here. We've got some people who are routinely booking with us. They love it. Those are your immediate, like best reach opportunities for widening and converting bookings into new opportunities. So having a plan for what we call life cycle marketing, which is staying with people at every step of their experience with, again, your company, is so important. And I'll call out Disney. They do this so well. It's crazy. I went on a family cruise a couple of years ago. It was our first cruise ever. We were like, oh, this is going to be, good. We'd heard all these amazing things. It was amazing. Let me just say it was amazing. But, I get routinely every month an email from Disney Cruise Line that is giving me something else that I could potentially activate or be enticed to do. For example, they do placeholder bookings. Again, people who are listening who've been on a cruise, they may recall this, but for Disney specifically, there's an offering to kind of come back with a discount, 10% off rack rate usually. You'd be amazed at how many operators out there are not leveraging a loyalty program, a bounce back initiative, a discover this experience if you liked this experience
Mm.
kind of strategy. So those types of efforts, again, both new and existing, that's a little bit of what we talk about when we say building up a pipeline. It's the collection of these marketing strategies, the breadcrumbs, if you will, that are placed, but placed with intentionality.
Yeah, I want to dig into that Disney thing for a minute because it's fascinating. I think a lot of people get regular emails from brands, and there are brands that I get emails from once a day, twice a day sometimes. It can be, totally overwhelming. They get emails from brands and they get so conditioned to those emails that it's swipe, 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 delete, delete, delete.
That's right.
What is it about either the way that Disney is crafting those emails or the content they're giving you in those emails or the strategy, the timing by which they come? What is it that makes you open that email, even if you don't have intent to book another Disney cruise today?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the things with email marketing specifically as a tactic for building a pipeline that we have to really be mindful of is fatigue, right? People can check out if they have too many emails. So one of the things we advise is the content itself, including the offering, needs to be hyper relevant. It needs to really be tailored with, again, intentionality, probably the theme of this podcast, to make sure that you're not just spamming out all kinds of information, segmenting your lists by experience. If you offer culinary tours, for example, what types of food, what types of experience are people interested based on their existing history with you all? Or again, if you're doing outbound outreach, kind of new solicitation on a prospecting front, how can you segment those lists to where there's a little bit more alignment in terms of what you're featuring and what you're offering as an enticement? Just that extra little bit of work versus, okay, here's my whole email list, both of existing clients and prospects. I'm just going to push this out there. These are the tours we're offering this season,
Yeah.
6 months out from now. That type of email marketing is not going to get you very far. You've really got to double down on the targeting capacity. And again, being super focused on serving the right message to the most receptive audience.
Even if it's not your entire audience, it's like
Even if it's not your entire audience, yes. Like
Yeah.
taking 20 minutes to go through your lists and trying to organize them in a way that categorizes with a deeper level of intention, that goes a long way in terms of enhancing and raising open rates and also click-through rates.
Yeah, I love that. So on the idea of the pipeline, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who, whenever I see them and ask them how things are, they'll say something like, you know what, I did such a good job prospecting, 6 months ago, my pipeline got full. And now I'm so busy fulfilling that business, executing that business that I haven't had any time to prospect. And so the next 6 months aren't looking that great. How does somebody get off that treadmill and establish a sustainable, as you mentioned, sustainable pattern of filling the pipeline and also executing the work, particularly if they're like a solopreneur or a very, very small organization?
Yeah, Brian, this is just the age-old question, isn't it? For all small
Mhm.
business owners, not just in destination and travel. You know, the the challenge, it's a trap, right? Of so many entrepreneurs, so many business leaders and owners, they get caught working in the business instead of
Mhm.
on the business.
Yeah.
And what happens is, as you mentioned, they have success. They grow perhaps organically through great word of mouth, through initial reputation, but that's only going to take them so far. And so, what we see, even from an agency perspective, is this is often where people say, oh boy, how do I get out of this? I'm stuck in this, recurring rut. I scale up, I've got all this activity, and then it's a dead pipeline. Nothing's coming through. So when we talk about building a marketing driven sales pipeline, it's really about building a system of advertising, marketing, PR, all these different integrated tactics that will do the work for you of leading those prospective travelers to your door. And
Mm.
that takes a lot of work. It's got to have great strategy. You've got to have some money to put behind that. But the idea is that you are standing up the operational mechanism to bring leads to you instead of you always having to go out and try to dig them up on your own, because that only gets
Mhm.
you so far. That is not scalable for any business in any industry after a certain point.
Yeah, chasing leads is exhausting, and
It's
you can
horrible.
only
It's horrible.
Yeah, and I mean it can work, it can bring in business, but you can only get so far doing that because, as you said, it doesn't scale. And that brings me to my next question, which is, how automatic do you think something like this can be? There's lots of folks out there who, for $10,000 will be happy to sell you their proven secret to building a set it and forget it sales pipeline or marketing pipeline. So how automatic can this be versus how much does a business leader, an entrepreneur need to have human interaction built into the pipeline or, constantly be tweaking the pipeline?
Gosh, this is a great question, Brian. Let me ask you this. Have you
Yeah.
ever had just a terrible experience with AI or with an automated platform in the travel
Uh,
space or even outside of the travel space? Like, tell me a story
yes.
here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, trying to, your flight is canceled and trying to get through the phone tree with whatever airline you're trying to, you
Horrible.
know,
Oh, the
get
airlines help.
rebooked with. I mean, it's, you might as well just go get a hotel room and try again in 3 days. It's maddening.
Yeah, it's maddening. And so keep that little anecdote in mind, right, as we talk
Okay.
about this. So what we're seeing is there's really two philosophies on the table right now as of 2026 when it comes to automating a pipeline, automating your marketing, automating your brand touch points. So in one category, you have the pro automation group. And these companies, these organizations are leaning in hard with AI. They're leveraging every tool available. They want scalability and they're going for it.
Hmm.
What I have seen in terms of just my own experience, research, and data that's been published, that can work, but only for a very specific segment of people. So this comes back to
Interesting.
audience intent. So if
Okay.
you have a traveling audience, if your customers are really comfortable with digital tools and platforms, if they are often a little bit more sensitive to price, they're really interested
Mm.
in quick scanning, activating, okay, this looks like the best bang for my buck. Those types of customers do tend to resonate better with a more automated approach. They just are more comfortable in that ecosystem. And so even if from a customer experience perspective, it's not so great, they're like, this is fine. This serves my need. This serves my purpose. I'm going to go and have this experience and it's going to be great. Now, there's another category, which is much more tailored. It's a much more hands-on kind of customized experience. And what we see, especially in the tour operator space, is that people, especially for older audiences, where people may be slightly less tech savvy. It is a myth that older individuals are not tech savvy, by the way. I just want to put that on the table.
Sure.
But there is definitely a preference both for older individuals and also higher income individuals to have more of a hands-on concierge style experience. So that's also a segment of the market that is, I would argue, better served by adopting less AI, less automation. It doesn't mean you can't have some in your process, but there's definitely two distinct categories that are starting to emerge as we, move as an industry over the next coming years, and especially as AI continues to ramp up. The key, Brian, to take away from this is you have to understand your audience. If you're going forward either on your own or with an agency partner to try and design and really reevaluate how you build a marketing and sales pipeline, it's got to start with a deep understanding of who is the audience, both, again, the new target audience or audiences, and then again, who are our current customers that we want to continue to engage in a meaningful way without making them really frustrated and heading out the door.
Yeah. So it's almost like that customer who is considering spending, I don't know, $6,000 to $8,000 per person on your, high-end tour to Europe or your river cruise or something like that. It's almost like they say, with the amount of money I'm about to spend with you, you can afford to have a live customer service rep that I can call with questions. Is that fair?
Yes, Brian, absolutely. And, we can talk about this a little bit later in the podcast as well. But one of the things I've been sharing and really kind of preaching out in circles here in our industry is that we are in this K-shaped economy. And we have been in this model for a long time, but it's continuing to accelerate. Most economists that I've read and, observed talking about this all say this is probably here to stay. And what this means in plain language is that the top 20% of household income earners, they are holding up the whole economy for us here in the States and in North America more generally. And so the bottom 80% are struggling. The middle class, as traditionally defined, is shrinking objectively. And we also have, this huge cohort of people in that bottom 80% of household earners that are really reevaluating their travel decisions. It's not that they're not traveling. So it's not they're not traveling. It's that they're starting to prioritize closer to home, drive market experiences, things that are a little bit less, how should I say this, polished and packaged.
Right.
So that's a different category. But what we say to people, again, circling back to the point of your question is, who are you targeting? Are you a luxury brand? Are you going after that top 20%? If you are, you better have a real human person who can help field questions, deliver a higher touch type of experience to, again, justify a higher price point. And you better have your brand on target in terms of the message you're sending out to that prospective group, because they have money and they're willing to travel. But you can't go into that space with, a brand that looks as though it's bottom dollar.
Yeah.
It's a misalignment. So those are some of the nuances that I think are really important for all operators and destination marketers to understand right now in this economy and where we are.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the K-shaped economy. Something that I'm really passionate about, and we talk a lot here on the podcast about, is how we can serve, say, that middle sliver of the K-shape. The sliver that has shrunk, the sliver that is getting less attention, the sliver that is feeling so squeezed every time they go to the grocery store or look up hotel prices online. So if you were advising a tour company that is not shooting for the high-end customers, but is trying to serve that middle sliver, what would you tell them is, a smart and, acceptable way that they could leverage some tech tools, some AI to, build this pipeline, bring in sales without having to have the overhead of a bunch of customer service representatives answering phones.
Yes. Okay. So this goes back to the building a pipeline that will do the hard work for you so that you
Mhm.
are no longer as exposed to the seasonality or the cyclicality of your ability as a business owner or leader in the company to drive sales and energy. So, a couple of things. One, the website has to be in great shape. And
Mm.
this is where, Brian, to your point about that middle audience in particular, your website's going to really have to thread the needle in terms of your value proposition. And it goes back to what are you offering that really will appeal to this group of prospective travelers? I'll be honest, the middle road is the hardest one to
Mm.
tread.
Mm.
It is much easier to pick a lane, even if it means kind of downshifting, for that middle group and sort of targeting that larger 80% on a value proposition. That is usually the easier path. But for
Mm.
any of the groups, including the middle road, as you suggested, having your website be up to date for our modern reality is important. And I'll touch on AI here for a minute. As we're seeing this shift with AI, we're moving from search engine optimization to what's called generative engine optimization. And this is a space where all of the content that you put out on behalf of your brand, so your website content, YouTube videos, social content, all of it has to be aligned in a way that is readable and visible, ideally, to to AI
Mhm.
platforms. It's something like 75% of AI users, Brian, now use ChatGPT or their preferred AI platform as their primary search engine.
Yeah.
So they're not relying on Google anymore. And, we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, as we go on. But it just really justifies, you can't gatekeep pricing anymore. I talk to so many
Mm.
people who are like, oh, I don't want to put my pricing on the website. I'll tell them, tell them when they get here. I'd like to, especially if they're marketing to a higher end traveler. Oh, well, it's all custom. We'll build that. And there's a place for that. The problem with that is that AI is going to be crawling your site looking for that baseline information to determine relevancy when someone is searching within that AI tool. So again, looking at your site, making sure that it's, in great shape, that's key. Another piece in this same lane, Brian, if you'll indulge my dorky enthusiasm for these technology developments,
Sure.
is Google just recently announced this Universal Commerce Protocol, this UCP. And
Uh-huh.
I don't see enough people in the travel and tourism industry talking about what that potentially means. Right now, this is more of a commerce driven focus, right? So, purchasing potentially things like beauty products or hair care products. But the intent and what I have seen it written from industry and tech leaders is that if this works well, the Universal Commerce Protocol really can build the pathway for cutting out all of the middlemen in our tourism ecosystem. So OTAs, suddenly out the door.
Right.
Now we're going to have agentic AI, where the agentic AI will decide when you type your prompt, find me a trip to Italy that costs between $5,000 and $10,000 for this season, and features the best highlights, with a focus on culinary experiences. AI is going to decide and then book for you without you
Mhm.
having to do anything as a consumer. You're not even going to go to a website. So this is a huge shift where we have to be laying the pathway now, the content breadcrumbs, not just for people, but in anticipation of us marketing to machines.
A couple months ago, I was at a big tourism event in a room with leaders from, say, the 10 biggest tour companies international in the world. And I asked this group of leaders, how many of you guys are building agentic AI sales tools on your website? And they all looked at me like I was speaking Farsi or something. Like they had no idea what I was talking about. And when I explained it, they're all like, oh no, we have no intention to do something like that. I'm curious if you think that's something that the smaller tour company, the solopreneur, the upstart, should try to get a jump on, or are we a little bit far out from that tech being ready? And do we wait and see?
Yeah, this is such a great question, Brian. So I think as a business leader myself, as someone in a growth position, right, to build and grow Red Sage Communications as an agency, and who has been able to help do that really successfully over the years, what I always encourage other business leaders to think about is maintaining a pulse on these bigger, higher level, really important transformational things in our
Mhm.
space, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's tourism and the travel industry more broadly, or marketing and how we think about sales and sales origination, it is really important to carve out time to have that in our minds. But on a day to day level, you're so right. That can feel really overwhelming. Like, oh man, all this is coming. What do I do? So I do think there are some practical key things that people can focus on. And I'll circle back to, what you asked before about what are the tools and the priorities. I would encourage tour operators, small, mid-size, larger, whether you work independently, work with an agency, carve out time in 2026 to really just take a fresh look at your marketing strategy. Think about how you do sales currently. Does it have both a new and existing focus? Are you really optimizing your website for what we call capturability, making sure that you're not gating information, that you're not making your customers go through too many clicks to try to actually sign up and book with you, providing things like travel policies and forms up front where people can read through those and opt in very easily, just removing friction. These are some of the things that we really encourage in what we would call, strategy sessions. Again, Brian, this is a problem across all industries where the world is moving so fast. People want instant results. What we always try and orient people back to is, yes, we want to move fast. We want agility. We want to make changes in how we do the tactical piece of marketing to get on all these platforms and be in the right place in front of the right eyeballs. But you can't skip the strategy piece.
Mm.
You can't skip over the really thoughtful work of, am I right? Am I actually offering the right itineraries?
Mm.
Like going back to what we said about this bifurcation with the K-shaped economy, where do I sit? And it sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious, but it goes back to what we said earlier of, I have so many conversations with wonderful, travel professionals from DMOs, from the tour operating side, buyer supplier, like everyone's just kind of running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Like, it's
Right.
like most of us.
Yeah.
And, we know it's hard, but that's when like doing the obvious things, sometimes that falls by the wayside. It's just like weight loss or anything else, you
Right.
set out to do. It's the foundational things that sometimes we know we should do, but we don't make time to do them. And then we really struggle down the road because we haven't invested that thought work and aligned our effort accordingly. So that's a really big piece of it.
Yeah. Wow, that's such good advice. I could talk to you about this all day. I know you have other stuff to do, so I won't keep you much longer. But Michelle, what is the best way for people to find you, follow you, learn about what it might look like to work with you?
Oh, thanks, Brian. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Michelle Stark. You can look up Red Sage, look up me, and connect with me there. And then, of course, redsageonline.com is our website, and you can browse and see some of the work that we've done and some of our case studies. And of course, people can always email me, mstark@redsageonline.com, all spelled out. But it's just, I really appreciate being able to be here with you and talk about these shifts. We're seeing so much transformational change in our industry. And I know there's so many operators out there who have great offerings. They
Yeah.
are really like doing some wonderful, innovative, amazing things in terms of on the ground travel experiences. And, I just want to help all of them reach the right people and do it in a way that's cost effective, that doesn't, completely blow their operating budget, but really does generate outcomes.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we love that kind of work, and we will link to all those resources in the show notes. So everybody, it will be easy for you to find Michelle. Now, before we let you go, we got some fun questions we ask everybody. These are no pressure, no big deal. So you can just answer off the top of your head. We'll start here. When you book travel, are you booking window seats or aisle seats?
Oh my gosh, I am an aisle person all the way. I don't know why, but I just feel like there's like extra room off to the side. I can kind of like put my elbow out. I'm an aisle girl.
You can kind of cheat on that aisle side as long as there's not a cart coming through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Same for me. What is something in your travel, in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. My carry-on. I am a huge gamer. Like
Mm,
I'm a huge video game nerd. I love
okay.
Nintendo. Once upon a time, I dreamed of working there.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so I have a Nintendo Switch that I bring with me everywhere when I travel.
Yeah, you are the first guest to give that answer. So originality points. I love that.
Here's the thing. As an elder millennial, I feel like, right, it kind of, we were right on the leading edge of like
That's right.
when gaming became a thing when we were kids. So I grew up with it, dear to my heart. Yeah.
It's in your
I'm
blood.
honored to be the first.
There you go. I love that. If you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else going on, where would you be headed?
Oh my gosh. Free airline pass, nothing else going on. Ooh, this is a really tough one. I would probably say Barcelona and Spain.
Mm,
I had the opportunity to travel there when I was in high school to study foreign language, and I just love the country. I thought it was amazing. This was a long time ago now without giving away my age, but I'd love to go back and just, as an adult, really experience some of the cities there and,
yeah.
the food and culinary offerings. That would definitely be a bucket list return trip for me.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You just said you're an elder millennial, so I think people can probably kind of get in the range, do the math. But yeah, Barcelona, what an incredible place. Last question. What is one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Man, this is really good. Well, I will say we have been fortunate to take some longer family road trips with my husband and my two girls, and I just treasure them. They have been so wonderful to see so much of the United States in an up close way and kind of expose our kids to that. So, I would probably say a couple of years ago, we went through and saw the Dinosaur National Monument,
Yeah,
and we loved that. And we were there during COVID, which is kind of a weird experience. But
sure.
that pathway, kind of going through Colorado, up through Utah, and then up even to Idaho. We have some family up in northern Idaho, Montana area. So I'd like to take another road trip down that
Yeah,
path and, see what we could see and check out a few more national parks that we haven't been to.
yeah,
We do
amazing.
the
What?
passport thing.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure. I hope
yeah,
some
yeah,
people listen. The passport and the junior rangers. I mean, we're like obsessed with doing these things, getting our passport stamps and the junior
yeah.
rangers for our kids. They love that.
Your kids are going to be talking to that well into adulthood. Those are priceless memories. So I'm so
I
glad you
hope
get to
so.
do
I
that.
hope so.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Michelle, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us and sharing all your insight.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. You're doing great work. Love the show and, really appreciate being asked to come and spend some time with you.
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed that conversation with Michelle Stark. I know I certainly did. In fact, we talked a lot. In fact, we talked more than I had room to share with you here on the podcast. We just let the recording roll and covered all sorts of good stuff. But I've got great news for you. You can hear the entire uncut conversation on our YouTube channel. If you go over to YouTube and search for Gather and Go, pull up this episode, you can hear and see Michelle and me talking about how marketing strategy should revolve around your sales goals. She's going to tell you which tech platforms you should be leveraging for reach in 2026. And she's got some great ideas about improving your marketing by focusing on your core customer. So head on over to YouTube, or you can click the link in the show notes to go straight there. It's going to be worth your time. Now, I want to take a minute and recap some of the most important things Michelle had to say, because I want to make sure you don't miss them. When we were talking about winning new customers with your marketing strategy, she said, one of the things we really try to encourage our partners at the agency to think about is people as pigeons, and that we want to lay a breadcrumb trail for them. We want to put these breadcrumbs out into the world, but do it in an intentional way where we lead the pigeons to you to be able to take that action and ultimately drive sales. She said, it's not just a let me throw all the breadcrumbs into the wind and try to, give the pigeons a great lunch. She said, that's not really what this is about. It's about that intentionality. I have been in that situation, and I dare say there's a high likelihood that you have been in that situation where you want to try some marketing. You have no idea what's going to work. And so, like Michelle said, you kind of just throw stuff out into the universe and see what sticks. Here's the problem. Nothing sticks. At least that's what I have found. And that's what many, many other entrepreneurs like you tell me they have found too. So I love Michelle's approach here. Lay breadcrumbs, devise a strategy, devise a trail, focus on one thing and be intentional. If you try that one thing and it doesn't work, then you know that one thing doesn't work. But if you try 6 things at a time and don't get any results, you never know which one of them had the weakness. You don't know if perhaps one or more of them would have worked if you had focused on them and devoted all your resources to them. So it's much better to set a strategy in advance, dig into that strategy, see what happens before you simply throw all your marketing dollars into the wind. Now, when I asked Michelle about the secret behind crafting emails that people actually open and want to read, she said one of the things with email marketing specifically as a tactic for building a pipeline is that you really have to be mindful of fatigue. She said people can check out if they have too many emails. So one of the things we advise is the content itself, including the offering, needs to be hyper relevant. It needs to really be tailored with intentionality to make sure you're not just spamming out all kinds of information. She said you should segment your lists. You've got to double down on targeting capacity and be super focused on serving the right message to the most receptive audience, even if it's not your entire audience. Now, I really want to double down on that last part of that thought, even if it's not your entire audience. Very many marketers push every message they have out to everyone on their list. The problem with that, as you can tell, is that it leads to email fatigue. The more people see messages from you that don't relate to where they are in life, how much money they are looking to spend on a trip, or the parts of the world they want to visit, the more they see things that don't relate to them, the more likely they are going to be to tune you out, to unsubscribe from your list, or maybe even worse than unsubscribing, they just stop opening your emails and you don't even know that they're not paying attention to you. So instead of doing that, it's much better to focus your outreach on a small portion of your list that you know is a good fit for what you are offering, what you are talking about, rather than to put everything out there for everyone to react to and risk wearing people out. And finally, when we were talking about why you need to refresh your marketing strategy specifically for this year, Michelle said, I would encourage tour operators, small, midsize, and larger, whether you work independently, work with an agency, whatever, carve out time in 2026 to take a fresh look at your marketing strategy. Think about how you do sales currently. Does it have both a new and existing customer focus? Are you really optimizing your website for what we call capturability? Making sure that you're not gating information, that you're not making your customers go through too many clicks to try to actually sign up to book with you. She said, providing things like travel policies and forms up front where people can read through them and opt in very easily removes friction and leads to more sales. I've told you all on the show before, I have a tendency to look for kind of set it and forget it solutions in life. And wouldn't you know, sooner or later, that always crops up to bite you. There's very few things in life that you can ever just do once and then leave that way, because people change, the world changes, markets change, marketing strategies change, technologies change, and you've got to change with it. I love Michelle's focus here on removing anything that creates friction for your users, making sure they can find any information they want about your trip, any information they want about your policies. They don't feel like something is secret or hidden behind an email gate. It's not behind a paywall, but they can get anything they want to know and make the most informed buying decision possible. And then when they're ready to buy, you need to make it super simple to book with you online. Great stuff there from Michelle Stark. Well, we have been talking all about sales today, such an important topic. And I want to finish off the show by looping you in with some advice that may be helpful from a kind of business that does a lot of sales every day. That's right. I'm talking about the car dealership down the street. We're going to take a close look at some of their tactics in today's Hot Minute. Yeah, that's right. The Hot Minute is the portion of the show where I take 60 seconds to give you my unfiltered thoughts on an issue impacting tourism every day. And today we're going to ask, what can car dealerships teach you about sales? So let's put 60 seconds on the clock and get into it. The chief thing you can learn from a car dealership is what not to do. I've been trying to buy a car recently, and the experience of working with dealerships has left me furious. Every time I reach out to a dealer about a car I'm interested in, they come back to me with a bunch of hidden fees that were not disclosed in the initial advertisement. This kind of bait and switch pricing is really the worst possible type of sales behavior. And unfortunately, the travel industry is not immune to it. For proof, just look at hotel resort fees. In travel, our goal should be to delight our customers, give them a ton of value, not soak them for every penny we can get. Deceptive pricing has no place in this equation. So whatever you sell, make sure to clearly show the price up front. If you don't, you're no better than the car dealer down the road. Well, that's the Hot Minute. That's how I see things anyway. Of course, as always, you are welcome to disagree with me, and we can still be friends. And hey, whether you agree or disagree with me, we would love to hear from you. You can send your thoughts, questions, or your tricks for beating car dealers at their own game to podcast@grouptravelleader.com. I read every email that comes into that account. I really do love hearing from you. And hey, you never know. Your ideas might just be part of the next Hot Minute. And while you're in the mood to give us some feedback, would you do me a big favor? Would you go to your favorite podcast playing app? And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, then do it while you're there. And if you could also give us a rating and leave us a review, that would be so helpful. And I am sincerely grateful to everyone who has done that so far. My thanks as well to Michelle Stark for joining me today. Next week on Gather and Go, we're going to have a special bonus episode for you, sharing some of the incredible stories of courage and conviction from the civil rights era in Mississippi and how you can visit some of those sites to inspire yourself and your travelers today. That's something you won't want to miss. Until then, though, remember this. At the end of the day, we are all on this trip together, so let's make it a good one. See you next time on Gather and Go. Gather and Go is hosted and executive produced by me, Brian Jewell. Our publisher is Mac Lacey. Our creative team includes Danya Simmons, Ashley Ricks, and Rachel Crick. Our sales team is Talisa Reck and Ashley DeLucia. To advertise on the podcast, call Talisa at 859-253-0455. Gather and Go is a production of the Group Travel Leader. For more information on our podcast, magazines, and events, visit us online at grouptravelleader.com.